Hey, what's up everybody? Justin Myers back here with another video. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you guys how to properly use an overdrive pedal. And in today's video, we're mainly going to be taking a look here at one of my favorite overdrive pedals. This pedal here is the Greer Amps Lightspeed Overdrive. It's just a very good pedal. It's a very good amount of gain that's on tap here, and the EQ is just absolutely excellent with this pedal. So you can see here that it's a very simple pedal. We really have three controls here. We have the loudness control, we have the drive control, and we have the frequency knob. Now, the loudness control is going to control the overall volume of this pedal. Now, most overdrive pedals are going to have some kind of similar control layout to this pedal. It's normally going to have some kind of volume. It's going to have a gain or a drive or overdrive, however it's labeled. And then it's going to have some kind of EQ knob, whether it's a tone knob or if it's a 3-band EQ or if it's labeled as frequency like it is here on the Lightspeed. Now, normally for me, I normally like to have a 3-band EQ on an overdrive pedal because you can actually get in there and really dial in the low end, the mid-range, and the high end. But with this pedal, the EQ is already so good to begin with that you actually don't even need a 3-band EQ. You could simply just control the overall frequency knob here and really be able to get a great sound happening just by setting it up at 12 o'clock. So I'll go ahead and do that here on this pedal. So 12 o'clock is just straight up, just like that. And that's normally where I always start whenever I'm dialing up any kind of overdrive pedal. I always put the tone knob or the EQ just straight up at 12 o'clock, and then I just make my adjustments to whatever I'm hearing. If something is too bright, then I simply take down the high end. Or with this pedal, I would just adjust the overall frequency knob and just back it down just a little bit. If I'm hearing too much low end, you just make your adjustments, whatever you're hearing. So then from there, I take my volume control and I normally try to find unity gain. So what I mean by this is I want to be able to play at the same volume that my amp is playing at. And I just want to be able to click on the overdrive pedal, and I want this volume to be the exact same volume as what my amp is at. So I don't want it to be boosting, and I don't want it to be cutting anything. So normally that unity gain setting is going to be somewhere around 12 to 1 o'clock, somewhere in there. You just have to use your ears and really figure out what this volume is, And that's the most important thing, is you have to use your ears. Are you hearing too much low end? Are you hearing that there's a volume change? What are you hearing? And that is the most important thing, hands down. So you have to be able to hear this stuff. But just as a general rule of thumb, just kind of a general guideline here for the volume, it's normally going to be somewhere around 12 or 1 o'clock there, just like where I have it set. Now, on all overdrive pedals, we're also going to have a drive control or a gain control. And what I want you to do, just to get started, is I want you to just take the gain knob and just put it all the way down to 0. Now, what we're going to do is once we plug the guitar in here, we're just going to simply adjust this gain control and just slowly but surely increase it. And I want you to just dial it in so that there is just enough gain where you feel good as a player. You're very comfortable in the passage that you're playing. And once you feel good and it feels right to you, just leave the gain alone. For me, normally on this pedal, I normally like to set it around 12 or 1 o'clock, somewhere in there. That's normally a really good starting place here on this pedal. Now, what's really cool with this Lightspeed is you could actually use the gain and turn it all the way up to 10 if you really wanted to. Most pedals are not like that though. Whenever you turn the gain to 10, you're going to get a lot of low end and a lot of just nasty frequencies happening. And it really just turns your guitar tone into mush when you have the gain set so high. So if you feel that, for example, your drive control, even at 12 or 1 o'clock, is just still not enough gain, then most likely the problem is that your amp is not turned up loud enough. And this is another huge mistake that a lot of guitar players make whenever they are trying to dial in their overdrive sound. They play at such a whisper quiet volume that you're not getting the power amp section of your tube amp working correctly. So this is another big thing. If you're playing a Blackface Deluxe Reverb, you got to turn that amp up. You got to turn it up to 3 or 4 to really get that power amp section working and to really actually move some air. And this is really, really important, because if you're playing a deluxe reverb on 0.5 or at 1, you're just not getting the power amp section working at all. And it sounds very tinny and very bright because, again, the power amp section is not working and the speaker is not moving any air whatsoever. So that's really important as well. You got to turn the amp up, and that's really going to change how this overdrive pedal sounds and how it really behaves and how it works. So that's really, really important. Now, another thing that you want to experiment with these pedals is you want to experiment with the chain. So normally for me with the overdrive pedals, I normally like them to be close to the guitar. Excuse me. So I normally like the overdrive pedal to be close to the guitar. Now, you'll often hear people say that you want to go higher gain into lower gain pedals. But, for me, I actually like the opposite because I like to be able to look down at the board and I like to be able to see my low gain pedal going into the high gain pedal. And for me, the way that I like to play is I like to elevate the amount of gain that I play with. So for me, I would never want to use 2 overdrive pedals together. I always use just one or the other. But you can see here on this pedal board that I actually have a version 1 RC booster, which is really like a light EQ shaper, and it's just a little clean boost that goes into the light speed. So all it's doing really is it's just adding just a little bit of gain, and you can just shape the EQ just a little bit. If you're hearing a little too much low end, or if you need to add a little bit of top end, you could very easily do that with this RC booster. And that's what I just absolutely love about this thing, because normally for me, the problem with the overdrives going into a tube amp is normally in the low end or it's normally in the high end. With this light speed, the mid-range is absolutely perfect on this thing. I don't think you have to adjust anything with this thing. Even with the frequency knob at noon, it sounds excellent. So for me with the RC, that's what I just really like about it so much, is you can get in there and actually control the bass and the treble. But the big thing here is that the RC booster is going before the light speed. So the EQ and the amount of gain that you're actually boosting into the light speed is really going to be very minimal in comparison to putting the EQ, which I also have here, the Boss GE7, after the light speed pedal. So now with this EQ that's going after the light speed pedal, it's really going to change the EQ and the sound of this drive section here. So this is really, really important. If I were to have the EQ going before the light speed, this EQ would be nowhere near as powerful as it is after the drive. So for me, the way that I like to use this whole system here is I like to always leave the light speed on. So that's my main drive. And then I use the Exotic Effects RC booster just to get a little bit more gain under my fingers and just to shape the EQ just a little bit. And then for my solos or for any parts that need to jump out of a mix, I kick on the Boss GE7 pedal. And I normally will boost 800 and 1.6K, which is mid-range. And man, just with that little bit of boost, it really gets your guitar to jump out of a mix, and you can really get important parts to really jump out of this mix with this setup. And it's the perfect amount of gain. And like I was saying, I like to elevate the amount of gain that I play with, so I always have somewhere to go. I'm never just stuck with one particular overdrive, with just that amount of gain that is on the light speed. If I need a little bit more gain, I can click on the RC booster, and when I need more EQ for certain parts that need to jump out of a mix, I kick on the Boss GE7 EQ. So it's really powerful and it works really well. So this is how I use the overdrive pedals, and this is how I use the light speed and this particular system here. Just to run down this entire pedal board, I just have a Peterson Strobo Stomp tuner, and then that goes into the Exotic Effects RC boost. That goes into the light speed pedal, the light speed into the Boss GE7, and then I just have a little simple delay here from the MXR Carbon Copy analog delay, which is a really great delay pedal. So that's really all that I use for pedals. You know, I have another pedal board where I have two different overdrives, where one is a bit more gain and it's a totally different EQ in comparison to the other overdrive pedal. But this is a really simple pedal board setup that I use all the time, and you know, it just really works well. You know, of course, I'm limited to just the one overdrive here, but I can really elevate the amount of gain that I play with, and it just really feels good under the fingers. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please subscribe and like the video and drop a comment down below with what you guys think. I'd love to hear from everybody. Thanks again so much for watching. Take care.